Hello everybody, good afternoon. My name is Sean Maynard. I'm the MIS coordinator, hence the Meet Your Coordinator session. A couple of things to point out. If you haven't used Zoom before, please, the etiquette is to be on mute unless you need to say something. So I've been muting people as we've been going. To go and mute yourself, if you hover over the Zoom screen in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a mute button and a stop-start video button. So if you can just make sure you're muted. Also in that menu somewhere, depending on how wide your screen and stuff is, there's a chat box. I've already put some links into that chat box that you might want to make use of. When we're going through the presentation, and I'll get into that in a second, please use the chat box to ask questions or unmute yourself in question time and ask questions in the question time. Okay, so let's get started. We've got about 90 slides in 2 hours, so get your popcorn and relax, essentially. So, like I said, my name's Sean Maynard. I've been at the university in the information systems area for nearly 25 years now. I've been the coordinator of the MIS for about the last 7 years, so I know the degree pretty well. And the idea of this presentation is to essentially give you enough information that you can get through the next period of your study life as such. Feel free to add me to LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is here. All email regarding the MIS and questions you may have about the MIS should be directed to the MIS help email address. It's in the bottom right hand corner there. It's just mis-help@unimelb.edu.au. So without further ado, this is going to be the agenda for today. I want to welcome you to the MIS. We'll discuss a little bit about what it's like studying the MIS. We'll then go and talk about the admin side of things, which I'm not involved with. This is all going via the student admin area called Stop 1. We'll discuss a little bit about getting the most out of your experience at UniMelb, including a video from Associate Professor Shanton Chang, and he'll introduce himself and talk about things like exchange, jobs, and so forth. And then we'll go into the in-depth course advice section, where there are basically 4 sections, one on general course advice, and then course advice very quickly for each of the 3 specializations. And then part 6, what do you do now? So hopefully we can get through all of this in about an hour and a half or so. So please wait for the questions until you get the question slide popping up, and it pops up about 6 times, basically at the end of each of those sections, or approximately. So firstly, welcome to the university. For those of you who are coming not through the undergraduate, that's what University of Melbourne looks like. And we're looking from the north down to the south. And essentially, you can see at the foreground here are the, what do I call them? The colleges, the student union with the sports grounds in here. And this part here, as I'm sort of moving the pointer around, is the university sort of itself. My building's this building here, but of course, none of us are there now because of the coronavirus. So when you get to campus, probably next year, you'll be all over this particular part of the university, essentially. The way the university is structured is like this. There's 2 sides to the university, just so you have an idea. There's the academic side of things, where you have the academic divisions, including the faculties and schools. For example, we sit in the Faculty of Engineering, or the School of Engineering. And then within each of the schools, there are schools or departments, and we're actually teaching the MIS from the School of Computing and IS. On the other side of things is the stuff all about strategic planning, about the admin side of the university. So you have the Chancellery that then has people doing strategy, admissions, COVID-19 response. And then underneath that is Stop 1. Stop 1 is the place to go for everything related to the admin side of things, and we'll have quite a number of slides talking about what Stop 1 does in a few minutes. So as I said before, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a whole pile of options. So the unmute, the mute, the chat should be here or in the more. So feel free when you ever see this particular screen about questions to ask questions. Also, please note that there will be links to the presentation and the help sessions, and they're posted in the second link in the chat, the study guides for the MIS. The slides that you're seeing right now are already on there, as are the study guides. So please have a look at the second link in the chat to get that information. So some of you have come into the IS degree not even knowing what IS is. You sort of look at it and you think, oh yeah, that might be interesting. So information systems is essentially the study of the interaction between computers and people. Now that has a variety of different connotations. It can be from an organizational perspective. It could also be from a societal perspective. So no matter which perspective you're coming from, we're looking about what's the impact of the use of ICT, or how can we use ICT better, and so on. That's what sort of IS is. So in IS, we do have some technical knowledge. So you do need to know databases, and you do need to know the basics of programming. Now, we don't teach you in-depth programming skills in the course. We do teach you one course in programming, so that when you get to the other subjects that you need knowledge of how to program, you can do those subjects. It also is there so that you're able to understand the people who are doing other parts of IT, like the people who are doing the MIT will learn lots of programming. You need to be able to talk their language and understand what they're saying. Hence, we need to have a background in programming. We also have the non-technical knowledge, or the managerial knowledge, if you like, things about change management, data management, analytics, project management, and so forth. And then we have some other stuff around business. So having good business knowledge, for example, business process management and what businesses do in process management. Now, all of this material is really 12 of the 16 subjects that you're going to actually undertake. The other 4 subjects are general electives, and in that study guide link, you'll see study guides for all of the 3 specializations, and they will give you the appropriate elective for each specialization. If you do find an elective that you'd like to do that relates to IS, you can email MIS help and request to do that elective. Where do you find those electives? You find them in the university handbook. So that would be handbook.unimel.edu.au. IT is one of the areas where there is a fairly good job demand still. Most of the IT people I know in the profession at the moment, even though we're sitting here in Victoria in a COVID lockdown, are still working. They're mostly working from home, and they're mostly working full-time or 4 days a week, and they've taken 1 day a week off because of the COVID situation. So across all the sort of IT areas, there's still demand. The MIS has been designed partly with industry in mind, but also it's been designed based on the model curriculum for master's level IS courses worldwide. So what we've done is we've taken that curriculum, we've designed it, we've then gone to industry and said, okay, what would you change? What would you add? What's missing, etc. So at the end of that process, we ended up with the degree as you see it now. It's been fairly stable over the last 5 years, although there have been minor changes go through, especially on the research side, and also adding the MIS Health 2 years ago. So it's fairly stable degree, very relevant to industry, and you can sort of see some of the organisations that have actually we've dealt with, and most of those organisations will actually hire our students as well. So what's life like in the MIS? And I'll let you read the cartoon and think about it. It's like life doing any other university degree, essentially. You will have to study on your own. That's the hardest thing, and it's even harder with the coronavirus issue that's going on. So what do we expect in the MIS? So there's usually lots of students around. So, in this particular presentation right now, there's only 56 students. There's around about 140, I believe, coming into the MIS this semester. We have approximately a total of 850, and that's across the 2 years. And around about 100 of those, maybe 150 of those, are part-time students. We also teach some subjects, such as the database subject, with the MIT students. So the database subject tends to have 500 students in a class, whereas most of the MIS core subjects have between 160 and 200 usually. So we're sort of slightly smaller because we're sort of same sort of size as the MIT, slightly smaller class sizes when we're not combined in classes. MIS classes are a combination of people in front talking to you, much like I am, but they tend to be a lot more interactive. A little bit different with the COVID situation, where some subjects record lectures and you interact via a discussion board or via a question and answer session later. They're taught all over the place. So some of the subjects are taught during the day, some of them are taught at night, some of them are taught at weekends. What we try to do is we try to give the most flexibility in when the subject's being taught. From memory, there are only 3 subjects that are only taught during the day that are core in the MIS, and the other subjects are either taught at night all the time, or they have 1 semester daytime, 1 semester nighttime for the core subjects. Most of the electives are taught in the evenings, apart from 3 that are either that are taught in a more block mode in winter or summer. Academic staff. So a lot of the academic staff have a fairly strong background from industry. So during the course, you'll meet people who have that strong industry background. You've also got people with a strong academic background, so who have had industry experience as well. So your subject most likely will be taught by an academic staff member who will bring in guest lecturers from industry. There's 1 subject at the moment in the core that is taught externally by consultants, and that's the professional IS consulting subject. And those consultants have strong links with academia, but they've been out working as a consultant forever. So there's currently 2 staff in that. Christina, who did her BIS, her Bachelor of IS and her Master of IS with us, and Pia Shedden, who did his PhD with us. They're both one's from E&Y, Ernst & Young, and the other one's from Deloitte. So they're both two of the big consulting firms that hire our students. Some of the electives are also taught by experts. So for instance, the entrepreneurship innovation subject is taught by someone who's actually an entrepreneur, who's actually done it and knows what he's talking about. Yeah, that's all I can say about that one. So the classes themselves are they could be lectures or seminars or tutorials or labs, essentially. So a combination of those sorts of things depending on the subject. The only subjects that got labs in it are the database subject and the programming subject, and possibly the enterprise systems elective. Okay. All the other ones either have just seminars by themselves, where it's a very, very interactive type way of teaching, or they have a combination of seminar/lecture and tutorials. Tutorials range in size from 25 to 50, depending on the subject and how the subject interacts. Be prepared to work in groups. So one of the things that everybody hates when they're chasing marks is to be forced to work in a group. Anybody who's been working in industry knows that it's all group work. There is no real individual work. You have to work with a team. So part of our job, as the employers have told us, is to actually get people to work in teams and learn how to work in teams, even if it's a bad team. So there's a lot of the subjects will have up to 60% of their assessment, which is group work, and they try to have ways of mitigating any group issues during those particular subjects. What's expected of you? Well, there's a lot less hand-holding than there even was in an undergraduate. Okay, so we expect you to basically come to class prepared. If you get asked to read something, please read it. If you get asked to do some other preparation, do that preparation, because otherwise you're not going to get a lot out of the class. We want you to be sort of, how do I say it, nice, for want of a better word. So if, say you're sick, okay, if you're sick and there's an assignment due, you should actually let the lecturer know well before that due date that you think you're not going to be able to make the assignment date and ask for an extension, rather than leaving it until the day it's due or the day after saying, oh, I couldn't do it. All right. So the staff will be a lot more responsive if you're nice, if I can put it that way. Some of the differences in studying in Australia, for those who haven't studied in Australia before, there's a lot of unscheduled time. Okay, you're only going to be in class, I think at most 4 hours, but for most of the subjects is 3 hours of scheduled class time. So that equates to around about 2.5 hours of time that you'll be doing something in the class. So that means that the rest of the 10 to 13 hours that each subject should take per week is you self-studying, reading, preparing for tutorials, doing assignments, and so forth. And that's where it's really important for you to try and keep up, if you like, and to learn. It's a lot more self-directed, as I said. So you're learning, yes, you're getting some from the lecturers, you're getting some from the tutorials, but you have to actually do that extra reading and work. The tutorials want you to actually discuss. So unlike this room, we'd want you to actually have your camera on, have your sound on when you're saying something, and actually participate in the class. Okay. Once we get back onto campus, you'll actually be called on to participate. The way that the writing is in assignments, and this is one way of expressing it, it's meant to be a little bit more argumentative and less descriptive. What I would actually say about this is that when you're writing an assignment, what we want you to do is to justify what you're saying. And the better students tend to make insightful comments and justify why their comment is insightful and should be therefore heard. So that's one thing, that's one way to look at. It's a different approach for grading assignments. You have to realize that everybody in here has got at least 65% to get into the course. So all of a sudden, when you start getting your marks from the subjects, they'll probably be lower than what you expect, simply because most people are already sitting at the 65, and that range of marks will extend from the full 0 to 100. So some of those people down the bottom end, the weaker students, will be getting 50s instead of 65s, and some of the stronger students were getting 78s, will be getting 74s, that sort of thing, just because you're competing against stronger students. Okay, there's a question in the chat I'll get to when I start talking about the course planning stuff. The marks that you get given at the university, you get given a grade and a mark. The H1 grade is Honours 1, which is 80% and up. Around about 10 to 20% of students would get that mark. Then you've got the H2A grade, the H2B grade, which is 75 and 70 respectively, and then an H3 grade. So they're all honours grades. Approximately 65 to 75% of the students will get a grade above a pass, which is an H3 or above. Then you've got the pass grade, and then you've got the fail grade. And usually, 10% of students fail. It's probably probably a lower number in the postgraduate area. Most subjects might fail 3 or 4 students, or but in some cases 20 students, depending on the class size, but usually less than 10%. There are some other strange grades that you might see when you get your marks at the end of the year, at the end of the semester. There's a grade called a 49 NH. What that grade is that you have failed the subject because you failed a hurdle in the subject. So that could be that in one of the subjects you have to pass the exam to pass the subject, but you did badly on the exam, therefore you get a 49 NH. Okay. Then you've got a WAF mark, which is a withheld mark, which basically says there's no mark available yet, and you have to wait. Now, that mark is sometimes given if you've got an academic honesty issue. In other words, there's plagiarism possibly happening, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Then there's a CNT mark, which means that for this subject, there's no mark because it continues into the next semester. Okay, and then at the end of the semester, the following semester, you'll get that mark. Examinations. This is an old slide, obviously, from the dates. Essentially, examinations, I would personally expect to be online, and there's an online examination process that the university used in first semester that worked pretty well. You just need to make sure that you're actually available for the exam period. Don't make plans until the exam period finishes, because in the event that something happens, you may have a rescheduled exam. Now, in a real world on-campus situation, an exam that has a fire alarm go off, for instance, would be stopped, and you'll be asked to come back within the exam period to finish the exam. If you've booked a flight home, that's a problem, because that's not a special consideration issue. Okay, and I'll talk about special consideration a bit as well. So the university says you must be ready. The second thing is that staff have no idea when the exams are until you do, because we get told the same time that you do, and that the exam timetable doesn't change. Once that timetable's been released, it can't be changed. This means that you can have 3 exams on the same day, but the university will do something in that case. So you've only got 2 exams, and they'll give you an alternate exam time. But it is possible to have 2 exams on the same day, and you just have to live with it. It's unlikely, but it does happen. Okay, we've had sometimes for our first year foundation students where they had 4 exams in a week. Okay, so you just need to actually be careful of that and study well and plan well around it. The university this year changed to the Canvas learning management system. This is where everything for a subject is put. This is where all the discussion boards, lecture slides, lectures, assignment submissions, and so forth happen. So it's worthwhile looking at the Canvas website. Most of the subjects that you've got should have a Canvas website, hopefully by now, or at least by the end of this week. There are a couple of places that you should also look at. One is the student induction page, and the university would like all students to do the induction. And there's a link to the student induction in the chat at the moment. And in particular, you should do the modules on consent matters and academic integrity. Okay, now this goes back to how we teach and what we expect. We expect you to go away and do those now I've told you to do them. Okay, if you get brought up with academic honesty charges, as in plagiarism charges, and you haven't done those things, that's no excuse. The university will still deal with it as it needs to deal with it. Okay, so it's up to you to actually make sure that you do these things. You also might consider undertaking the library research training. If you do a search for library research in the Commons and look under Research Essentials, that'll just help you to shortcut the way of going and getting stuff from the library, doing research for the subjects that you're going to be doing. And you'll find that in the master's level, a lot of the assignments which are written require you to do at least some sort of research. This is what the LMS looks like for me. It looks slightly different for you. And you can sort of see some of the subjects that are available. I teach, for instance, the strategy and governance subject, and I also do an online subject called business analysis and decision making, and sorry, analytics and decision making. The commons is down here, so if you want to look at the library stuff, you go down to the commons on the far left at the bottom, and there are also communities, and you'll see there's somewhere in here is a CIS students community that you should all be already put into, and that community is used to give you information about non-academic stuff that happens. Okay, so you need to have a play with Canvas at some stage. So the CIS students community, you should see that, as I showed you on your subjects page. It's a new page in Canvas for our students only. It has things like employer visit announcements, events from the students, societies, and so forth. So it's a good way of us communicating with you regarding important non-academic, but career-based events. Unfortunately, I have to talk about this slide and the next two or three. The university takes academic honesty and academic integrity very seriously. There's a website that you should look at, which is on this slide. There's a website that actually helps you work out what to cite, how to cite as well. Essentially, what the university is asking you to do is, when you're writing assignments, it doesn't matter if you're coding, if you're writing SQL, if you're writing English, anything that's not your words, you must tell us where it came from. Okay, that's what it's essentially saying. Everything that you submit will be passed through some sort of plagiarism detection to try and identify if you're not doing the right thing. Okay. Some of the forms of misconduct include copying and pasting from websites or other material. Now, you may think that's pretty silly, but what we found is when you're doing an assignment, what a lot of students do is they go to the papers, they have a document, and they copy and paste from the papers into the document. And they might come back 2 or 3 weeks later to finish the assignment, and they don't know what's their words and what's not their words. Okay, so you need to be careful how you do the assignment to try and avoid plagiarizing. Okay, so rather than copying and pasting from documents, put it in your own words in your notes and say where it comes from, because the idea is not yours, it's still their idea, so you need to cite them. You can't replace 2 or 3 words in a sentence. You have to rephrase the whole sentence. You can't have images and tables without acknowledging where they came from. You can't copy stuff from other students, especially from previous years, and I'll talk about a case of that in the MIS in a little bit. If you're using computer code from others, acknowledge where you got it from. You're not allowed to sign in for other students if attendance is mandatory. And little things like not turning off mobile phones in exams, or not stopping writing when you're told to. And then the big one over the last few years has been the use of fake medical certificates. So there's easy ways to actually avoid getting caught up in all this crap, because it is it's a process that you don't want to be involved in. Make sure that you do the argument. Make sure that it's your own thoughts that you're writing down, not someone else's. Do the analysis yourself. Work out how to reference properly, and then reference properly. Some subjects will allow you to hand your assignment in, and then within an hour or so is a Turnitin report produced. Learn how to read the Turnitin report, because that tells you how plagiarized your assignment is, and then you can actually fix it and hand it back in. Use a reference manager. So if you haven't actually been involved with writing a lot, it's worth actually looking at either Mendeley or EndNote and work out how to use it, because it makes it so much faster to do your assignments in terms of citing things. And then decide whether or not you want to actually have your own self-respect and values. Okay, because this is an ethics thing, essentially. One of the interesting things here was using fake medical certificates. in Australia, you have to have a consultation with a doctor to get a medical certificate. Now that can be telehealth or it could be face-to-face. Okay, the university is, along with all the universities in Australia, has an actual database of fake doctor certificates, and they know pretty quickly when something happens that shouldn't happen. Okay, so please don't try to do that sort of thing. So in the MIS, last year, I'll talk about last year rather than this year, there are around about 45 allegations. So that's 45 people out of the 800 has been picked up for some sort of issue. Many of those were exam misconduct, not putting pens down, writing in reading time, etc. And they're minor offences, but it could be you get 0 marks for your exam, or 0 marks for the question is the usual one. Then there's some non-exam type things, and some people were found not guilty, of course, but some people were given substantial penalties, including getting 0 from an assignment. There's an interesting case of copying between semesters. So we had a student who knew somebody who did the MIS 2 years ago, and they copied around about 50% of that first student's assignment into their assignment. Now, the outcome of that was that both students were penalised. The student who did the copying got 0 for the assignment. The student who had it copied from got 50% for the subject, and they went back and they changed his subject score. Okay, so just be careful around this sort of stuff. That's how serious the university takes it. Okay, are there any questions? I'll have a breather here. Thank you. So feel free to ask a question if you need to. Can I still get a physical student card? That's a really great question, actually. I don't know. That's going to be a question that you'll have to shoot to stop one. I'm not sure how they'll do it. I'm sure you can do it, and they'll probably mail it to you, but I'm not sure how they'll do it. There you go. So people are already saying in chat, yes, you can get one, and they will mail it to you. Okay, so and Antra has got their hand up. Do you want to say something, Antra?
Yes, I want to ask, it's something regarding course planning. Is it the right platform to ask, or should I wait for the second session?
You should wait until the end of this session. It is coming.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yep. And Ming Xiao, do you want to say anything? Because you're unmuted. I'll take that as a no, and you're now muted. Okay.
Hi, Sean. Can
Yep.
you help me? Yeah, okay, cool. I got a question, and I am a semester 2 student, and I recently received an email about like a capstone unit, a capstone project. It says my degree includes a 25 points capstone project. So I didn't see any information about a capstone unit on like the uni page. So yeah.
Okay, so in the MIS, the professional specialisation, the capstone is a combination of 2 subjects, the ISIS 90032 and ISIS 90051. Now we'll see those in about 20 slides. Okay, we're going to come to the course planning and what the course looks like then.
Okay.
And I'll do the same thing about the internship a little bit later on. Okay, so May, if you want to ask that question again, when we get down to the professional specialisation discussion.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on. So let's look at the admin side of the university, and I need to go a little bit faster, which is actually hard to do because I go pretty fast anyway. So essentially, the place to go for all the help is Stop One, and there's a whole variety of ways to get hold of Stop One. You can see that on the slide. Best way is to actually go to ask.unimelb, go to students.unimelb, etc. Of course, Stop One, you can't go in person at the moment because no one will be there. What does Stop One do? They offer a whole pile of different services. So Stop One handles everything that's non-academic of nature, including a lot of course advice. So the academics, me and a couple of others, should only be contacted via MIS Help when you can't get help from Stop One or you need approval to do something. Okay. So they do things in admissions. So for all the courses, all the entry requirements, etc. They do things around the careers, academic skills. So if you think your language is weak, you go and ask Stop One for help and they'll send you in the right direction. Study abroad and exchange, which we'll talk about a little bit in a few minutes. All the admin side of things like fees, transcripts, letters, scholarships, graduations, and so forth is Stop One dealing with it, as is the course planning, enrolment assistance, special consideration, and student equity. And then finally, if you do have pressing outside issues, outside academia, outside the university, Stop One does have a pile of services around that, including disability, housing support, financial aid, elite athletes can get help there. They have a counselling service as well. There's a whole pile of services that you can get help if you need help. Okay, so please investigate those if you think you need help. You just go to Stop One, read them up, you go to the FAQ and ask the questions. Okay. A couple of things here that there is a student equity and disability support part of Stop One. This is where you go if you need help over a long term. So for instance, if you have a disability where you can't sit down for long, or you're dyslexic perhaps, that's the sort of thing that these guys are looking for. So if you're in that boat and you do have a learning disability of some sort, please go and talk to the disabilities area, simply because they can do a whole range of different things for you, such as giving you more time in an exam, making sure that academics are aware that you've got a severe disability and you need more time on assignments. If you've got a sight problem, they can get the exams printed in big print so you can see them, all those sorts of things. Okay, so just be aware of that particular service. Be aware that Stop One does a lot of the course planning and enrolment help. So it's no use mailing MIS Help saying I can't enroll in the subject, because we can't do anything about it either. It's a Stop One problem. Unless you know you need permission to enroll in the subject, where you then ask for permission, and then we'll either give permission or tell you what to do to get it. But Stop One can help you about what subjects you should choose, the majors, the minors, the specializations in the MIS, if you like, different pathways, study abroad and exchange. Okay. So they have a course planning page. We have a course planning page. Okay. So that course planning page, as I said, is the study guides for the MIS that's in the chat. And I'll paste it again at the end of the session in case it disappears. How do you talk to Stop One? They're everywhere. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on phone, they're on email. There's lots of ways of getting hold of Stop One. So just sort of go, do a search Stop One in Google, and it tells you everything about Stop One you didn't know about and probably didn't want to know about. So a couple of things that are useful now from an academic point of view. So the first thing is this whole concept of special consideration. So as a student, all is not lost if you get sick. Okay, so the way that we deal with it in our school is if you're sick for an assignment, you basically contact the subject coordinator for that subject, asking for an extension to the assignment, no no later than 1 day before it's due. And you'll have to provide evidence, of course. Now, that could be the form of a police report. It could be a medical certificate, but that basically outlines that you're not well and you haven't been well for a few days or a week or whatever it is. And then the lecturer, the subject coordinator, will then work out what to do with that. And there are rules that they have to actually abide by as well. So that could give you, 3 or 4 days, a week maybe, extension to your assignment if you ask before the assignment's due date. If you ask after the due date, it's too late. Okay. So that handles things like illness, it handles car accident, those sort of situations. Okay. And there are a number of adjustments that can be made. Now, if you've got things that deal with exams or long-term issues, that's when a special consideration application should be put in. There are rules around when you have to do it. You have to do it within 3 days of the assessment item. So if you sat an exam on the Monday, you have to put in the special consideration by the Thursday. Otherwise, you already have, it doesn't count anymore. The special consideration applications are assessed by a university panel, and they will give an adjustment to whatever happened. So you might get another exam if you've been sick during the exam or didn't do the exam because you were sick, more likely. But it also might end up with other things happening as well, such as giving you an alternate type of assessment. Okay, so the special consideration is there in case you have a problem when you're studying. The staff that assess these are fairly good in working out what a problem is and what isn't a problem, and they'll let you know via the process. So have a look at the special consideration page. It's useful to know what you can do in case you get into the situation where you do fall over sick with the flu or COVID, or you get hit by a car, or you have a car accident, or whatever. One of these life unknown events happens during your study. Okay. Any questions from the admin side that I can take that I might be able to answer? Okay, and so in that, if that's the case, let's move on to getting the most out of your UniMelb experience. And I want to introduce Shanton Chang. Now, I've asked Shanton to do a recording because I didn't know how long it'd take to get to this point. If you can't hear his voice, yell out in the chat and we'll see if I can fix it. So here we go.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Master of Information Systems. I'm Shanton Chang, your Associate Dean International at the Melbourne School of Engineering, but also an Associate Professor at the School of Computing and Information Systems. As you may or may not be aware by now, the School of Computing and Information Systems is part of the broader faculty known as the Melbourne School of Engineering, MIT. And we are part of the University of Melbourne. The Master of Information Systems is actually a very industry-driven program. The reason for this is that one of the key parts of ensuring the success of the program is to make sure that our students are highly employable. So while I'm interested in welcoming you to the program, I'm also very interested in making sure that you successfully leave the program and become successful graduates and are gainfully employed 3 years from now or 2 years from now. One of my exciting parts of the job is actually staying in touch with a lot of the alumni over the last decade, more than a decade, and looking at how successful they are. And so part of the issue here is to make sure that the Master of Information Systems, through its curriculum, through the subject itself, through the core curricular activities, has become a really industry relevant program that is focused on your employability. So that suggests that it's not just about the classroom. It's true that in your subjects, you're going to have industry lectures and industry people coming in to take you through the program as well. However, the MIS is not just about the subjects that you're going to be doing. What's also really important is also to understand that there's a whole broad range of activities that's meant to support your success as an MIS graduate. So I'm going to start by saying that international students amongst the group, there's already 4 modules that you can start doing called onboarding international students. We recognize that starting remotely and also coming to a new culture can be a challenge for some students. And so we've put together 4 modules that actually helps your transition. The last of these modules is actually to enhance your employability and really start to get you going on the path to success. So although they are not examinable and they are not part of assessment, we strongly recommend that you take it on because it will help your transition to studying at the master's level at CIS. Beyond that, what I do want to share with you is the comprehensive industry relevant program that we run here at the School of Computing and Information Systems and the Melbourne School of Engineering that will support your future endeavors. I'm just going to share a couple of slides with you to take you through some of these programs. All right, so I'm going to start by showing you that we have a range of programs that's organized not just by the Melbourne School of Engineering, but also by the university as a whole. So for example, the Melbourne School of Engineering offers a whole series of professional skills workshops, focusing on, alumni sharing their experiences on how to get jobs, early career panel, looking at how to get internships, and a lot of internship opportunities that exist, whether you do it for credit or not for credit as part of the program. We also have a whole industry series where companies come and talk to you for CIS students. Here are some examples of companies that are already going to be coming to talk to you over the next few months. At the university level, we also have a lot of resources. For example, we know that a lot of students are interested in working in China. So we have a focus on China Week where you get to engage with employers from China, of course, digitally at this stage. We also have a virtual fair that's coming up very quickly, Employability Week. We even help you with your LinkedIn and resume. And there's also the Leaders in Industry Awards program that you should check out. It's called Leica. Where it's a fantastic opportunity for you to enhance your skills. There's a whole website on careers and employability. Now that's all offered by both the School of Engineering and the university as a whole. Every Tuesday, you're going to get a newsletter from the School of Engineering called the MSE Express that's going to highlight all the events that are happening. Sometimes students don't think about going to those until it's too late. The reality is you need to start as soon as possible. And that is, once you're in the program, start going to at least 1 or 2 of these every week. This is to build your knowledge and make you more ready for industry so that you can hit the ground running. And also to help you with job applications. The reality is that you have to start applying for jobs as soon as February or March next year. So what we suggest is you have to start preparing now. So those are some of the things that are offered by the School of Engineering and the university. However, I also run a whole series of programs within the School of CIS itself, okay, the School of Computing and Information Systems. And here's a CIS series where we have things like the CIS Industry Awareness Series. I'm going to run a UX HCI panel on the 28th of July. All these events here, you can actually see from the LMS, the CIS students LMS. When you log in, make sure you don't unsubscribe from it because that's where we tell you of all the events that are happening. So one of the things that I tell students is that you have 4 academic subjects if you're a full-time student, but actually there's an invisible 5th subject. And the 5th subject is really about your well-being and also your employability. Do not ignore it. Start working on it now. The next slide I have is to share with you this key point around study abroad and exchange. We also have a lot of study abroad and exchange, and while that's not so relevant in the short future, by the time next year comes, if we are able to travel, there are opportunities for you to visit a whole range of universities with support from the faculty for funding. So make sure if you're interested, you can go for as short as 3 weeks up to a semester. As you can see, we have a range of partners across the world where you can get credit in recognition of the subjects that you're going to be doing here as part of the Master of Information Systems. So I guess the message here is that don't just think about your studies in terms of the books and the assessment of the subject. one of the biggest component of our most successful students is that they pay attention to all these employability sessions as well. And it's not just us as academics talking to you, we bring in a lot of industry partners coming in to talk to you about how to get jobs with the companies. So I wish you every success, and I might see some of you in class, especially those of you who are studying fundamentals of information systems. See you and all the best.
So at this point, I should point out, so Shanton has just said that it's really important to get involved in the activities. So he said that, you know, we have a number of employability employers coming out to talk to students. One thing he didn't say is, I've already told you this, it's about, say, 800 students in MIS, say there's 600 that are full-time students. How many students do you think would go to one of these sessions? Invariably, it's only 30 or 40 students who always turn up to these types of sessions. And it's the same 30 or 40 students. And those 30 or 40 students are the students who are getting the jobs. Okay, that sort of says what Shannon's saying in a nutshell. So you please be involved in these sessions. Just so you know, there is a careers online at Melbourne Uni website, as you can see here. This isn't only useful for getting a job after uni, it's also useful for getting a job during uni. So within our department especially, there are hundreds of casual jobs available usually every semester. It's too late now for this semester, of course, but for semester 1 next year, we're always looking for people who want to put themselves out there, who have clear, good knowledge of, say, databases or programming, who, you know, amongst all the other subjects, who want to actually help teach the undergraduate students. Okay, so there are job opportunities if you want to look for them. Okay. Also, very quickly about global mobility. The global mobility website, as you can see, is here. Shanton's already sort of had that on his slide a little bit. In the MIS, the easiest way to go on exchange when we're allowed to is to use your electives. So what a number of students do is in their 3rd semester, they do their 4 electives overseas and then come back and they have the final upper core 4 subjects to finish the course. Okay. Where our students go, you saw his map. All those little dot points are where our students were, all those pins. You know, Manchester in Germany, across the USA, Japan, UK, China, everywhere, essentially. There's also a Melbourne IS Graduate Association called MISCA. If you're interested in that, please go to their website and you can do your quick QR scan if you're fast enough. If you missed the QR scan now, go to that second link in the links that I've given you in the chat, the study guides, get this presentation and you'll be able to see the scan there. Okay. So that's all there is really about that. I will take the internship question a little bit later. I'm still waiting for that internship question to come up, and also the question about the health specialisation I'll still get back to. Are there any questions from the study abroad area? Can I post the links again? Maybe, if I can find them again. Yeah, I'll post them again now. So there's your links again. Okay, so a question here. I want to go on exchange, but are the only electives available to do on exchange? So when you're on exchange, the way that we assess the electives essentially are, does the course that you want to do relate to IS? Okay. Now I'm saying that most students do electives on exchange because when you get to the upper core subjects, and some of the lower core subjects, they're actually quite hard to find an equivalent subject overseas. You know, every university teaches database, every university teaches programming. Most universities do an intro to IS course. Not a lot of students do an impact of digitalization course or an emerging technologies course or a governance and strategy course. Okay, so what we're saying is the easiest way to do study abroad is to use your 4 electives as your study options. Okay, because then if you wanted to study something like supply chain management, we'd let you. If you wanted to study C++, we'd let you, okay, because they're all related to this. The same thing with if you wanted to study, say, psychology or a law subject that's related to IT. Okay, I hope that answered that. Will there still be exchange projects during the summer holidays, even though there's a study ban? Okay, so the university has banned all travel, okay, full stop. So it's very hard for me to answer that around summer. Usually you'd be waiting until the 2021 summer in January 2020, sorry, 2022 summer, January 2022, to do your exchange possibly. And you can go on exchange for one subject even. Okay, so they do have short periods of exchange. I know there's a couple of places in Europe and in Japan where you can go and study one subject worth of material and then come back. And it's only a month's holiday essentially where you're studying that material. Okay, I'll come back to the research specialization question in a little bit. Okay, so on slide number 39 now. So this is where the main thing that I need to get across today is it's the course advice. Okay, that website on the screen now, which is the second link in the links in the chat, that website, bottom of the website, it has a video of a presentation like this that I gave probably 18 months ago now. It has these slides that you're seeing today, and it has a professional, a research, and a health study plan that you should be trying to follow. What this section is for me to go through what the MIS is, to show you what those study plans might look like, to discuss things like when do you decide for the research specialization, and so on. Okay. A quick question was just asked about the exchange. If you're on exchange and doing electives, do the subjects count? How do they look at the subjects in the transcript? I suppose the answer would be all you see in the transcript is 50 points of overseas study. Okay, it's up to you to provide the transcript of the institution you were studying at to see what your marks were at that institution. Okay, so the university just says you've got 50, you have X number of points, full stop. It's like getting a credit for the course as such. Okay, so in the MIS, the normal course, and if you have exemptions with credit, this doesn't apply, but in the normal course, you have 200 points. Each subject is worth 12.5 points, and you will only get an exemption with credit if you have studied a similar subject at the postgraduate level in the MIS. Okay, so I will talk about that as we get going, and I'll answer the question in the chat at the same time. Okay. Students with relevant work experience can apply when they apply for the course for advanced standing, and the MIS research specialization is only available to students who have got less than 50 points of advanced standing. Okay, because you can't fit it in otherwise. Okay, let's go through some of the general advice. I've already told you about this page. So there's a picture of the page. Up here is a video somewhere that I've hidden. And you'll see the 4 links. The welcome guide, which is this presentation, the professional, research, and the health study guides. Okay. There's information in those study guides at the top if you read them that just talks about some of the rules for the specific specialization that you go into. There's the university handbook. So for those who aren't from the university already, all of the subjects, courses that the university has are in what they call the handbook. Easy web address, handbook.unimelb.etc. And you can do a search for subjects. This is the MIS page for the main course. The specializations would occur in the specialization section, of course. At the subject level, here's the fundamentals of information systems, which Shanton mentioned in his presentation, because he'll be involved in this subject. And it tells you everything about the subject that you need to know. What, it gives you an overview of the subject. In the overview, it might mention things like additional requirements for the subject. It gives you the eligibility and requirements, what the assessment is, when the subject's being taught, other information. And then, of course, one of the important things that is useful for some people is the timetable. Okay, so the handbook is, if I'll try and be non-denominational, the Bible, the place that you go to look it up, the encyclopedia of subjects at the university. Okay. The timetable that you get from the handbook looks something like this, and I'll try and help you read it because it might be useful for you at some stage. Essentially, at the front of the first thing here is the subject code. Ignore the U, ignore the 1. Then it comes to semester. Then there's the class type and the repeat of that class type. Okay, so in this example here, Fundamentals of Information Systems has a seminar on Thursdays in those weeks of semester, which are those dates. Okay, at Seminar 1, there is no Seminar 02. So that means you've got one seminar a week and it's only taught once. However, for the tutorials, there is one tutorial because it's only T01 all the way through. But that tutorial, there are a number of copies of it. So you'd only go to one seminar and one tutorial in the week, and you'd go to one of those copies of that tutorial that you get from the tutorial allocation system that you've already been playing with because you've mostly been allocated tutorials already. Okay, that's how you read it. Of course, the other stuff's obvious: the day, the start time, the finish time, how long it went for, and when it's taught, and of course, the location. Bearing in mind, the location for semester 2 is online for obvious reasons. Okay, so that's how you read the timetable as it appears. We get onto the next slide. The student portal is where you get your own timetable. This has probably changed from this last pick, even though it was done in February this year, because they're using the new tutorial system where you give preferences and you hopefully get your first preference of the tutorials. Useful to have the timetable sitting here, right? Which is where you get, that's how you get your tutorials essentially. Some issues around advanced standing, which will further answer the question. When you applied for the MIS, I have gone through and seen your application, very likely, if you have got any subjects that look like IT subjects, okay? That is assessed when you first apply. So if you gave us an incomplete transcript when you applied, you may need to ask for more credit to be assessed, okay? So if nothing has changed, so you gave us the full transcript, we've already had a look at your transcript very likely and have given you an assessment of credits or exemptions. Now, a credit is a exemption with credit. An exemption in the terms of the university is a non-credit exemption, okay? So an exemption with credit is given if you study the same material at a postgrad level. An exemption, a non-credit exemption is given if you've studied similar material, but at an undergraduate level. So for instance, anybody who gets an exemption for Comp 90059, which is the programming subject in the MIS, you would have got your non-credit exemption for any programming you've done in your whole undergraduate. So if you studied anything that's considered as programming, real programming, doesn't include VB, doesn't include what's that maths, that maths product? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it does include C++, Python, those sort of subjects. You'll get a non-exemption, so a non-credit exemption. Okay, if you've given us, if you've come back and you've given us a new transcript to say, hey, I've now completed my degree, or I've now finished the semester and I want to transfer into the MIS from Monash as a common one, then you may be eligible for further credit, Okay. And the way to get that essentially is just send an email to MIS Help with your final course plan, and we will look at that at some stage. Okay. You need to get that sent by the end of week 1 in case we want to make you exempt from subjects you want to do in week 1. Okay. So you just need to provide this transcript, the syllabus if it's not obvious, and the student ID in your email so that we can actually compare. And we'll look at what you've got in your offer letter. We'll look at what the new subjects that we missed out were, and we'll either give you more or give you none, or basically stays the same. Okay. If you think you've already studied a subject's content, then you also need to email MIS Help to discuss your options. So for instance, if you've done a year or more, 2 years or more of consulting for a company, we wouldn't want you to go and do ISIS 90045, right? It's going to waste your time. That's the only subject we actually give without having a subject related to it. If you study programming already, you shouldn't study programming again. It's just going to be a waste of your time. Okay. Likewise for database. So they're the 3 obvious ones. And I've already said everything on this slide, so I'll go through quickly. The only thing I haven't said is if you have got a non-credit exemption, at the end of the MIS, you need to make sure that you've done 12 subjects worth of IS stuff. All right. So you have to have done at least 150 points of information system subjects to get the degree. So if you have got an exemption, a non-credit exemption from a subject, you have to replace it with either, or there's actually a few of these I can mention. So either the ISIS 900 or Info 900 electives. We also count the end subject for the internship, and we also count the research methods subject if you do research methods. Okay. Some other things around general stuff about course planning. If you see a subject in the handbook that should be available in your course, but you can't find it in your study plan, all you need to do is to submit an enrolment variation form to Stop 1. If you have problems with that, email the MIS Help and ask for permission, and they'll say, please put an enrolment variation form in, and you have our permission. Okay. If it's not listed, so if you want to do one of the comp subjects or a SWEN subject or a subject from psychology perhaps, or from somewhere else in the university which is related to your professional development in IS, and you need to make a case for that because we do say no to some of these, you then need to make a case, email MIS Help, and then you'll get approval or get told what to do. Okay, at that point, you can do an enrolment variation again. Okay. Timetabling, we implore you to try and follow the course plans that we've given you. Okay, the course plans, we will not clash on the timetable. If you don't follow the course plans and you get a clash, and that clash means that you can't do a subject, and then that means that you have to come back next semester, as in the semester after you're meant to finish, there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, so if you follow the course plans, we will try up, 99.9999% of the time, you'll finish the course on time without a problem. If you don't follow the course plans, you may be increasing the length of your course. Okay, if you need advice around issues like that, once again, MIS Help or coming, we can do some online discussions as well. Okay. So if you are going to change a timetable for some reason, please check with MIS Help so we try and reduce the likelihood of a clash in the following semester. Okay, and there are clashes, they happen, unfortunately. A note on the course structure, as I said, we give you a clash-free timetable, or try to. if you change what we asked you to do, there's nothing we can do about it. That's what this is saying. Okay, when do you enroll to next this year? Already, hopefully, but now. It's getting very late to enroll because we've hired tutors. We know how big the classes are, so you do need to enroll. You enroll for next year, the whole year in November, and for summer in November also. Okay, and you enroll by the student portal. Okay, so the next 3 sessions are going to be specifically for the professional, the health, and the research specialisation. So we will get there. Okay. Any questions that I can quickly have a look at now? Yep, go for it, Andra.
I would like to ask that if I'm a part of research elective stream, how many credit hours will be allocated to my research?
Okay, so to be able to go into the research elective stream, firstly, you have to have more than 37.5 points of credit already granted in the degree.
Yes, I do have that.
Okay,
I
so
have 150
therefore,
points to cover.
that's fine. Yep, so therefore
Okay.
you would be doing 25 points of research plus a research method subject.
Right, and that research method subject will be a part of my electives?
Yes.
Okay, and how many electives overall am I supposed to do? 3
4.
electives?
It depends on what you're given credit for, but the normal degree is 4. This sort of thing, you might want to come to one of the drop-in sessions tomorrow or Friday, which I'll get to at the end of this presentation, and get some one-on-one advice.
Okay, Friday, okay.
Or tomorrow, it's tomorrow afternoon or Friday afternoon, but in the last 2 slides, I'll let you know what the times are.
Very right, I think it will suit me more.
Yep, no problems.
Okay, thank you, thanks a lot.
Okay, now I'll catch up with the chat. Are those assignments of each unit in the handbook right now? Okay, so that's a really good question, Zinming. The handbook at the moment is subject to variation because of the COVID situation. You will find out on the LMS what the actual assessment for the subject will be when you get to the learning management system, and the lecturers have to tell you what the assessment is in the first lecture. Some of the changes that are being made to assessment is that exams may be assignments, group work could be turned into individual work. It just depends on the subject. Individual work could be turned into group work. Okay, so there may be some minor changes like that. There won't be major changes to assessment, hopefully. And is it possible to transfer from the MIS to the MIT? Yes, it is possible. And it's possible to transfer the other way as well. The issue here is that you need to get course advice now from the MIT coordinator and the MIS coordinator. Okay, and one of the sessions that I'm going to announce later on, you should just come to that and have a chat if you're intending to transfer across, especially if it's after this semester, because you need to choose subjects that will count in the MIT. It's actually easier coming from MIT to MIS, but going the other way is actually a lot harder due to the subjects not overlapping very well. Okay, I'll leave it like that. If you need more help, come to one of the sessions, please. Just to confirm, do the enrolment dates mean we should have enrolled for semester 1 2021 by now? No, it's only semester 2 2020. Semester 1, sorry, the whole of next year, you enroll in November. There'll be an enrolment period, and you'll be sent an email saying, if you don't enroll by such and such date, we'll give you a fine. Okay, that's the date you need to enroll by. Okay, it's around about November sometime. I mentioned the capstone subject. I'll answer that question because it's different for each specialisation in the next 3 sets of slides. And I'm going to move on because it's already 2:15. I'm talking too much. It's hard to do it online. The profession. Okay, so I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because the information is in the links that I've posted before. And again, just in case somebody hasn't got them. Okay. So the core structure for the MIS professional. Okay, so this is the default structure. In your first semester, you do all the foundation subjects. So the fundamentals of IS, business process management, database and programming. If you have exemptions from any of those subjects, it is possible to move some of the lower core into your first semester. And then in your second semester to start picking up electives, or to move some electives in here, and then you can actually pick up the ISIS or info electives later on in the degree. Okay, so there's a little bit of ways you can play around a little bit with this. So they're the 12 subjects that you have to do. Okay, they are core, you have to do them, are listed here, unless you've already done that subject or something like it prior, which you would have been accepted from. Then we have a whole pile of electives, and the way that these are set out, we've tried to group them, and I'll say this once, and I'll get asked about 10 times, that you don't have to do everything in the same group. You can do the whole group if you want to, if you've got space. So it is possible to do one from the IT service provision, one from spatial, one from advanced IS, one from operations and marketing. Likewise, it's possible to do all 4 from spatial. Hey, they got it there twice, isn't that lucky? So you can sort of see some of the things. The ones on the left are mainly the ones that are taught in the IS area, apart from analytics. And there are some new ones in analytics that are listed on the website now. So that's a development that's happened about a week ago. The electives, anything with an ISIS or an info prefix, and you can sort of see the info interaction design here, can be used as a substitute when you were got an exemption, essentially. Okay. Now you'll notice that the specialization electives are different depending on your specialization as well. And I'll take that question, if I can go back and find it, about the internship. So under industry-based learning, there are a number of subjects around the word internship, if you like. The professional, the internship itself is the subject called ENGR 90033, industry-based learning. That is worth 2 subjects in your course. So there'll be 2 electives worth, or 2 replacement subjects worth, if you like. You would have to look at the handbook page for that particular subject to learn everything about it. My limited understanding of it is you can do that subject, A, if you have found an internship yourself, you go and talk to them and they put the assessment around your internship. And B, the university can find an internship, and then you apply to actually have that internship. That application process is competitive, and the people who are doing the internship will be interviewing you, and they will select which student they want. Okay, that's about all I know about the whole subject. I do know they were trying to play around with the entrance requirements to drop them a little bit. So that's your internship. The other thing I want to talk about is back up here around the capstone. In the MIS professional, where's my pointer gone? The capstone is essentially this. Okay, so that's your capstone for MIS professional. So you have to do those 2 subjects. They're core anyway, but that's our capstone. So that's really covered the MIS professional in a nutshell. Okay, so you've got all the electives to choose from. You can choose electives if you wanted to, and this is for the person who said, I want to change to the MIT maybe. You can take technical electives. Okay, so if you've already done a programming subject that could get you into the MIT, you can take 4 MIT subjects as part of the MIS. Okay, and the way to do that is simply to email MIS help with the request for the subjects, and they'll look at the prerequisite stuff for you. Okay, you can also take other, so the spatial electives as well, which are sort of more technical. And of course, if you want to get less technical, you can do management electives. Okay. Now, this is only a simple list of approved electives. If you find in the handbook there are things that you might like to do, such as, you know, psychology, we can probably get you into that. We can't get you into some things because we're actually precluded from enrolling students into those things. But whatever you request has to have an IT related perspective to it. So we have had somebody get accepted into some sort of, it was an IT type focus on the media, for instance, because they're actually come from the media. They want to continue the degree, to continue their career in the media. So that was an appropriate subject for them. Okay, so you can make you can ask for us to look at that. I'll get questions at the end. Okay. Health specialization. Okay, so the health specialization, and I'm not going to give this particular few slides. This is what Kathleen, who's the coordinator, has prepared. It's all about the use of digital health or digital healthcare, ranging from, you know, hospital type environments all the way through to implantable devices. Okay, so it's a very, very wide field. Okay, so the MIS health specialization, in the subjects, about half of the people that you're having in the subject will come from the medical side, and about half will come from the IT side. So in the first subject, which is already running, by the way, for second semester, because it was moved to July, but I'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to have the health people trying to learn the IT, and the IT people trying to learn the health. And it does work. The problem that some of you will deal with is that the language used in the health area is like learning a third language, especially if you're not a native English speaker, because they do go back into Latin. They do have words that you may not have seen before when you've learnt English as a second language. Okay, so just be aware of that. The course structure, essentially, this is semester 1, so I'll skip that and go to semester 2. We've asked you to actually do the digital health transformation subject in July. Now, the reason for that is it does create problems with the way that the course works. If you haven't done that, we will allow you to do it in semester 1 next year, alongside the 2 subjects for semester 1. But you need to be aware that you have to keep up and probably read ahead in that ISIS 90069 subject. Okay, so this one here is what I'm talking about. You could move that into here and put one of these 2 subjects into your first semester, but it means that in your second semester you have to really read ahead in this subject so you can actually do the health. So there's a question that somebody's asked, if I don't have a health background, can I survive in health? Answer is yes. A lot of people do health without a health background. We have, as I said before, had students who have had problems with the language as the main problem. Okay, so just be aware of that. And you can still do the health in 2 years, except that you're having in this semester, it won't be an optimal solution for you. That's all. Okay. In the health, there is actually a capstone, which is the health IT project. The default project here will be a project which is done internally, where all the students do the same project, I believe. If you do get marks above 75% on average, then you're allowed then to do the industry-based learning subject or a research project as part of your capstone instead of the health project. So you can do a research project instead of a project, or you can do industry-based learning instead of the project. Okay, I'll answer that question on the capstone now. Can the capstone subjects be only done at Melbourne? Probably yes. And the reason I'm saying that is in the MIS professional, you probably will not find those two subjects overseas. I've only seen one of them once from memory. If you can find them overseas, yes, in an MIS professional, you could do it overseas. In MIS health, probably not, but that's up to the MIS health coordinator and the coordinator of this particular subject down here, because he does all three subjects. Okay. Like the MIS professional, there's a whole pile of electives. You'll notice there's some different health ones here. And there's also a few things that are different in that you don't have any other internship opportunities in the MIS health specialization. They're the main changes. Okay, and you do have extra subjects that you can actually choose as electives in MIS health coming from the population and health, which is POP, or the health area of the university. So the MIS health is a growing specialization. It's a growing field. The use of IT in hospitals and the use of IT in general in the health area has always lagged behind other organizations, and there tends to be a fair idea about jobs. And Kathleen's produced, there were 3,300 jobs in this area 2019 on any one day if you look for the jobs. And you can get professional certification as a result of doing this. And it will go on to a PhD if you do the research project. Okay. Now, the research project has the same entry requirements as you have for the research specialization in MIS, and we'll talk about those in the next set of slides. And finally, I think for health, you can get involved in the university with health. There is actually a health informatics network at the university that they're trying to get people to join. And if you're in that, if you are doing the health specialization, please feel free to go into that. Okay, the final one, and I'll skip the questions again, is the research specialization. Okay. And it's really hard to talk about this because I'm passionate about it. The first thing you need to know is if you have any inclination at all that you want to do a PhD now or in the next 20 years or 50 years, you have to do the research specialization. Okay, because at the university and at most universities, you can't get into a PhD unless you have got research methods background and have done at least a 25-point research project. Okay. Now, we get students at the end of their first year coming to us and saying, I want to do a PhD, can I do research? And the answer is no, because you have to do the research method specialization in your first year. Okay. So as I said, if you're even thinking about it, if it's a glimmer of hope, or if it's an idea somewhere, you have to choose research now. Okay. So if you're in doubt, use one of your electives and do research methods by the end of your second semester, and that then opens up the whole research pathway, assuming you followed the research course plan. Okay, let's have a look at what it looks like. So firstly, going back to the research elective stream, okay, it's only available to those who are in a short MIS because they got exempt the credits essentially. You need to have a chat with us to make sure that you've got space in your degree, especially if you're only doing 100 points. 3 of your 4 electives, if you have them, become research subjects, and you have to complete Comp 90044 unless you've already done a research method subject in your undergraduate, you have to complete the subject in your first semester because of the way that the structure is, I think. You also need to start to think about the topic area and your supervisor. Now, I can give one-on-one advice, and there's a research session tomorrow on research, which we can spend some time talking about all this sort of stuff for the people in both of the research options. Okay. To get into the elective research stream, you need to have an average mark of 75, and you need to have no subjects with less mark than 65, and you need to get a bloody good mark in the research method subject. Now, they're all rules of thumb. So if you got a 78 in the research methods and a 78 average, we'd say, yes, go ahead. If you got a 70 in research methods and a 71 average, we'd say, well, no, it's not good enough. Okay. The research specialization. This is the preferred pathway to a PhD because you get a decent sized project that you do. You have to complete Comp 90044 research methods, and then one of these subjects, which is the first 3 are research methods, or an elective in your research field, and then you do your 50 points of research. Okay, it looks so. Have I got a course plan there somewhere? It looks like this. There it is. And you can see the research components are here and here and here and here. Okay, so you're doing research essentially for the whole 2 years, but it only makes up approximately 75 points of the 200 points that you've got. If you follow this particular course plan for the first year of your MIS, it enables you then to transfer into research, or you can still stay in professional and then catch up on the subjects you haven't done in the final year. Okay. Now, there's a question before around whether or not you can transfer between professional and research health and research health and professional. It's easy to, you can transfer between professional and health and research and health if you follow the other course plan. Okay, so for instance, if you're in the professional specialization, you really need to make sure that you've got that first health subject under your belt as soon as you can, because there is actually a 4-semester prerequisite chain in health. So it's actually hard to go from professional to health. It's easy to go from health to professional. It's easy to go from research to professional. Okay, it's hard to go from professional to research unless you've covered this course plan. You know, more yellow squiggles on the screen. Okay. What else am I to say? So the criteria for entry into the research specialization, the way it works, we'll discuss more in the research presentation tomorrow. But essentially, you stay in professional until the end of your first year, but you follow the research course plan. If you get the marks and you've completed the right subjects, we can then transfer you to research at the end of your first year as a summary. Okay. In the research specialization, similar structure for electives, but once again, there's no internship opportunities because you haven't got space, essentially, and for fairness across the degree. There is a large list of research projects, and I've pasted that as the last link in the chat. So if you wanted to have a look at that particular list, go there, have a quick look, see if you are interested. We do things that range from business process engineering through to information security, to knowledge management, to enterprise systems, to human-computer interaction, All right, so there's a lot of management side of things. There's also some technical projects you can do as well. And don't forget, even if you're in the research specialization, you can do a health project as well. So there's a fair bit of flexibility across these. And here's some examples of different projects that we've had over time. You know, I've just finished supervising somebody who did an analytics and what was it, data ops analytics, and also the use of games in security training, education and awareness, and so forth. Okay, so this is about 9 slides to go and I'm running out of time. I'll answer the questions that hopefully that we haven't got missing. So firstly, how can I transfer from professional to special to research? You'd have to attend the session tomorrow, which will talk about all that sort of stuff. You don't transfer until the end of the first year, and you have to register. And tomorrow we'll show you how, there's a form we want you to fill out to register that we'll announce tomorrow, and I'll show you the details of that session tomorrow as well, and I'll put it into the link. Okay. Given the current COVID pandemic, are there mechanisms in place to facilitate meeting the NIS cohort to decide on assignment groups for any given subject? My answer to that is the best way to handle that is to use Zoom. You know, everybody in this session's got their camera off apart from me. There's no reason you can't send an email out to students saying, hey, I'm looking for a group. Here's my Zoom. Let's have a meeting at 1 o'clock. Come along and have a chat. Okay, that's how I'll be doing it as a student if I were you. It's hard enough in real life, let alone the virtual life. You don't know what you're going to get, especially if you're a first year student. So some of the things that you can do is a number of subjects will have presentations, those sort of things that you can sort of watch and see. Hopefully, some of them are live via Zoom. Some of them are recorded. The discussion boards will tell you a lot about what people think and how they work. Because a lot of the subjects are using discussion boards to get you to have engagement in the subject. Those sort of ways, it's how I'd start to think about working out who you would like to work with, and then approach them and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. Can I work with you in our group? Most subjects will give you some time to form groups. For instance, the strategy and governance subject I teach, we actually ask for the groups to be formed by week 4. So you get 3 weeks of stuff, 4 weeks of stuff before you form the group. Other subjects actually put you in groups without you even knowing who each other are. It just depends what you're doing. Okay, so Sam's asked a good question actually. The question is basically saying, I'm doing a subject, but I can't see it on Canvas. There's 2 reasons for that. One is that you haven't enrolled in it, which is unlikely. The other reason is that the lecturer hasn't got it ready yet. Okay, and it's most likely that the lecturer actually hasn't turned it on, so you can't see it. Okay, you just have to be patient. They were all turned on Friday last week, but we have the option of turning them off if they're not in a fit state for people to see. Okay, and most staff do it this week. I'm enrolled in health. I enrolled in health last week. Why people ask about the transfer question? That's a good question. I don't know. People are just asking what the flexibility is in case they don't like it. Okay. Now we have, there must be 60 or so people enrolled in the health specialisation, and of last semester, and of those 60, I reckon we lost 10 and gained 10. So people do move in and out by the end of their first semester, so that's okay. What options are there in terms of group work? Did that one, didn't I? Yeah, okay. So with the group work, it's a subject by subject thing. Most subjects will have self-assessment forms for the group. Most subjects will say that if there's a group problem, let the staff know and we'll see if we can deal with it that way. Some subjects, including mine, have a questionnaire that everybody has to fill in as part of the assessment before they get their marks. If they don't fill it in, it's cast as a fail. and we call it, it's basically introspection, essentially. And we're asking you, how did you work in the group? How did your group members work in the group? And if we look at all those, we can actually get a good idea of whether or not we need to change marks or not. Because groups may not get the same mark, individuals may not get the same mark depending on how it's reported. So it depends on the subject, but there's always a lecturer that you can talk to about group issues, okay? And I would encourage that, having seen some absolute terrible situations in previous years. Okay, I'm able to do upper core or lecture subject in my first semester. Am I able to? Okay, I would really recommend that you didn't do an upper core until your second semester. We will allow you to enroll in some of the electives in your first semester. All you need to do is just email MIS Help if you can't enroll yourself. If you've got an exemption for a subject that's a prereq for an upper core, then you could enroll in an upper core. So for instance, if you got an exemption for IT infrastructure, we would allow you to enroll into strategy and governance. Okay. But the other ones are a little bit harder because they are at a higher level, okay, and a little bit more intense, essentially. Okay, one more question and I'll move on to the last section and we'll have more questions at the end. Is it easy to get a scholarship for doing a PhD? Define easy. Essentially, the university does have scholarships. If you're an overseas student, then you will need marks in the actual MIS of around about 85% to be considered for a scholarship. My current student who's just applied for a PhD, she got a 92 for her project. Her average mark's 86, so we expect her to get into a PhD with a scholarship. There are other scholarships. There are other scholarships around as well. So there's a Chinese scholarship if you're the Chinese Council scholarship, I think from memory, which again looks at around about the 85% mark. If you're a local student who doesn't need a scholarship because a lot of local students there's no fees for, if you're in a position that you can basically okay, if you're in a position where you can't work for a little time, for 2 years or something like that, you can get a PhD for nothing, essentially. But local students also have the option for going for a scholarship, and that's about a mark of about 82, I think, at the moment. Now, of course, that all depends on how many scholarships there are and how many students are applying. Okay, so basically a mark above 80, 85 is the best way to go. Okay, so what do you do now? So this is in part a summary. It's in part some more information about additional sessions this week that I've already emailed to you. So firstly, who do you ask about fees, visas, advice on leave of absence, special consideration, deferrals, etc.? That's all stop one's job. If you've got issues with enrolling to subjects, with timetabling, getting a class in a subject because it's full, that's all stop one as well. Okay. General course advice, the first place to go is stop one also. You only then go to MIS Help if stop one can't help you, or they recommend that you need approvals to something. Okay. The one thing I will say, and it's pretty obvious what I'm going to say because the screen's flashing in red, is when you email MIS Help, we can't do anything unless you've A, email from your university account, and B, include your ID number, because often we have to look you up and work out what your marks are before we can answer any emails. Okay, so that's stop one. Academic stuff. The advanced standing stuff I talked about, right, has to be completed by the end of week 2 of your first semester. So you've got 2 weeks to do it, basically, 2 and a bit weeks to do it. So if you do want to ask for more advanced standing, email stop one with the request. Okay. Changing your course plan. So in the first instance, go to stop one. If they can't help, then we can come back to us. And we do things like approval to enroll in the research specializations, the research subjects, moving between the specializations. So you basically just need to ask and we'll tell you what to do. Changing core subjects in your course plan, which is very, very, very hard to do. I think I've approved something like 3 in the last year out of 200. Adding electives in your course plan happens all the time. Okay. And essentially, once we go through, we check things, make sure you got permission, make sure you're allowed to do it. We'll actually tell you, please do a course enrollment form, and we'll post that to you in the email. Okay. It's all done online these days for the changes of stuff. So you think you need help. I need help at the moment. So there is the course advice documents that I've already shown you 100 times. Ask Stop 1, ask MIS help. We're all there to help you. Okay, we know how hard it is to be a student in this time, let alone trying to teach during this time. And I've been sitting here talking to myself essentially for the last hour. Not seeing faces and nodding heads and smiles is really hard. If there are other issues, so special consideration issues, etc., those should go to Stop 1 because there's not much I can do as an academic about those. Other issues affecting your study, such as your mother's gone crazy, or your dad's out of work and you have to work the job, or your mum's out of work, you have to work the job all the time. Those sort of things, the Stop 1 will deal with, not us. Having sanctions around subjects or anything administrative is all goes to Stop 1. One thing I'll ask you is if you know people who haven't actually been here today, and we're down to 55, so we were on 65, we're down to 59 now. It is a long session. If you know people who haven't been here, please let them know. Send them to that website where you can get the course plans, a copy of these slides, etc. Okay. Also, let them know about the sessions that we're having, and I've already sent you about those sessions. And just to reinforce that, there are some drop-in sessions this week and next week via Zoom. And the way we're going to try and do this is I'll let you into the room, and then I'll create a breakout room that I'll put people in to talk to one-on-one. Okay, and we can hopefully get through quite a number of people in those sessions. There's 4 hours in the first week and 4 hours in the second week of these sessions. So we should be able to get through those. These have been emailed to you already, so they should be in your email. Okay. If you do come with a friend, because I know there are people who are coming with friends, I'm happy to put both of you into the breakout room at once and just do everything at once. The second thing is, if you're considering doing research, you should attend this session, okay? Because I'll give a little bit more detail about the research specialization and about the processes that we go through. The staff member who's in charge of the MIS research will be in the presentation as well, although I'll ask him questions more than him presenting, because he's also new to the university over the last 3 years. He's only been the MIS coordinator for this year. And we do hold your hand a little bit in terms of course advice and such forth for this. So we actually work out who you are. I will personally send you an email every semester for your first year at the end of semester once marks are there to let you know how you're going, to say, yes, continue, you're fine, to say, hey, you're not going to make it, get your marks up, or to say, no, I'm sorry, just stay in the professional. Okay, and the reason we do that, by the way, is as soon as you choose a research option, you're taking a staff member's time of around about 2 to 3 hours per week. So it's fairly expensive for staff to be dealing with this, so we only want the good students. Okay, and that's why there's so many rules around the research specialization. Okay, there's one good question in the chat which I'll respond to, and the only way I can respond to it is how long is a piece of string? Next semester, can students go back to campus? No idea. you have as much idea as I do around next semester. We were sort of thinking that there'd be some students on campus starting next week, and there's not. There are a few people who, there are some subjects that are running face-to-face when you have to have a piece of equipment that you're using. So in engineering, there are students. In IS and computer science, there's no students on campus at all. The university, last I heard, was hoping to have real exams, face-to-face exams. I wouldn't be holding my breath on that either. And the answer to the question is, and quite frankly, I'm being cynical, is essentially, can students go back to campus next year? It depends on how many people stay home and wear masks, right? Because you're going to have a very low level of the virus in Victoria before they'll allow us to have gatherings more than 20 people, okay? So the recording of this session will be posted by engineering when they get it. It will take approximately 4 or 5 hours for it to process in the cloud before I get it. The PowerPoint is already available in that second link. So I'll post those links again. So there's the links again. And I'll also post the other links, excuse me while I'm looking for things, to those other sessions, even though you were emailed it on Friday. Okay, so here's the links. How'd that come across? Terrible. And it didn't copy the whole lot. Must be a limit on how many characters I can paste. So there's all the details that I've got for you guys. Now, before this session closes, you should copy and paste off the chat into Word, because as soon as I close it, the chat will disappear. Okay, so spend some time, copy and paste, and I'll take more questions now for the next 4 minutes or however long we get stuck here. So where do you find the recording? That's a good question. I don't know. I think it's going to be put onto the university's O-Week site in engineering. So where you've got the timetable for the events in O-Week, I think it's going there. I can ask that question, and I can post out to all of the IS students. And I want to paste this recording also into that second site listed in our links, which is the study guide site too. So hopefully it'll be there. Can you please also remember to record your attendance just by going to that link at the top of the page, because I want to know who you are. A question about the language difficulty. I'm only reporting about the language in the MIS Health because that was fed back from students who are from China. They had issues trying to find some of the health terminology in any English dictionary. Okay, so there's issues around that. Advice to help about that: talk to the lecturer. If you don't understand something, send an email saying, "Hey, I've got this problem. What does this word mean?" That'd be my advice for that one. Any more questions? Okay, so Michelle, yes, you can go to as many drop-in sessions as you want to. So it's just feel free. What they're there for, essentially, for everybody to make sure they're on the right track. To make sure that we're going to make sure that you've actually got the right subjects and that sort of stuff. I do everything from career advice through to holding tissues for the crying student who's failed in those sessions. So I said it is drop-in. There's the one thing with the drop-in sessions is that you'll need to work out who was there before you. Okay, there's no way of me telling who was in the room first, who was in the room second. So I'll just ask who's next, and then we'll drag you into the breakout room, and off we'll go. Now I'm hoping they work well because I haven't done this before, so this is a first for me as well. Okay, there's also a question about I'll answer this in general terms. How hard is it to get 80% in subjects? I don't think we've seen students that get 80% in every single subject they've had. It is rare to do that. We have seen students who've got, 80% or above in 10 or 15 or 10 or 12 subjects out of 16, and the other 4, I think the one I saw recently was a 66 and then a 72 and a 77 or something like that. So look, as I said, getting 80%, when you realize you're coming in with students, so let's try and rephrase that. In the undergraduate, right, you're coming in with the best of the best from high school. With the masters, you're coming in with the better students out of the undergraduate. So each time the marking scale changes. So if you're coming in with a 65, that's a pass in the MIS, really. So you can expect that scale to spread out. So if you're coming with an 89, you're probably going to end up in the 80 area, very likely, right? If you're coming with a 75, you're probably going to end up in the 72 area, something like that. So it will stretch out. So yeah, it is hard to get 80s, not unheard of, but hard. If I have more questions, who should I talk to? So firstly, it depends on the type of the question. So if it's an admin question, stop 1. If it's academic and it's in the next 2 weeks, you'd be faster to come straight to one of those drop-in sessions, quite frankly, because stop 1 will be absolutely chock-a-block. Okay. Kitty Boone, you got exempted from Comp 90059. You have to replace it with an ISYS or info subject. Yep, Antra?
I would like to ask, like, you're stretching upon getting a minimum amount of percentage in order to continue with research.
Yep.
That is 80% in a subject called research methods.
That's right.
Let's suppose a student inspires to do research but couldn't make it at 80%. Then what will happen? He will continue with the professional stream, and that one research method subject will be taken as an elective, or that one research method subject will go wasted.
The research methods becomes an elective.
Okay.
Okay. So it's low risk.
Okay, and the 2 subjects or the research equivalent to 2 subjects that student was supposed to take in the last semester will be converted into 2 professional subjects.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and a question from C, who is asking, how do I get in contact with students from the past and get some experience from them? No idea, quite frankly, because this is new for us too. You will be getting some students who have been around in your subjects, because there are various course plans. So in some of the subjects you're going to take, you won't all be new students. There'll be people who've already been here. So that's one way. Also going to the sessions that Shanton mentioned is another way of getting in touch with the broader cohort of students in the MIS. That's all I've got at the moment. I don't think of any. LinkedIn as well. Yep, there's a whole. I was going to say crap load, but there's a lot of people who are in LinkedIn. Hence, if you want to come and join my LinkedIn group, as in link to me, you'll be able to see some of those people in my LinkedIn as well. So that might be a good way of you being able to get people who are in the MIS to talk to you. essentially. So you can be a sort of second contact in LinkedIn. So as I said, feel free to request the LinkedIn thing, which is why I'm showing it on the slide so long. So we've really run out of time, unfortunately. And that is the last slide, which is good. I hope this was informative for everybody. I really hope that you enjoy the MIS. Feel free, as I said, to email MIS help with anything. There's currently, you'll find that this week and next week, the responses coming from Stop 1 and MIS help will be slower than normal, simply because this is the busy time. I think I've got something like 70 emails today in that MIS email box. Feel free to add to them and we'll get to them when I get to them. Okay, so I'm sorry it took so long. There's a lot to cover. I hope that everything was clear, and I will virtually see you this semester sometime, very likely, or I might physically see you by the time where you get to strategy and governance in your second last semester or last semester. Thank you.